Nyabuto Brian, registration number 21 06 216, taking media and culture in KCA University. The first section was addressing government regulation of media. Now, I'll start by saying this. Even though the Constitution guarantees freedom of the press, the government does regulate some media. Print media are largely unregulated, and newspapers and magazines can print nearly anything. That is as long as they don't slander anyone. But then the internet has also gone largely unregulated, despite congregational efforts to resist some controversial content. Broadcast media, however, are subject to the most government regulation. Radio and television broadcasters must obtain license from the government. That is because, according to the law, uh, the public owns the airwaves. The Media Council of Kenya issues these licenses. The Media Council of Kenya also acts as the agency or the police agency of the airwaves, and it can fine broadcasters for violating public decency standards on the air. In extreme cases, the Media Council even revoke a broadcaster's license, keeping him off the air permanently. So it's that serious. Now, uh, the Media Council has also established rules. The rules broadcasts concerning political campaigns. Now, in political campaigns, there is a rule that is known as the equal time rule. That is first. It states that broadcasters must provide equal broadcast time to all candidates for a particular office. Okay, the second rule is the right of rebuttal. This requires broadcasters to provide an opportunity for candidates to respond to criticisms made against them. A station cannot air an attack on a candidate and fail to give the target of the attack a chance to respond. Yeah, that is what it means. Then there's another rule that is known as the fairness doctrine. Now, in this, it states that a broadcaster who airs a controversial program must provide time to air opposing views. That is what it says. Now, we go to another media regulation, that is media consolidation. Now, in this, we find that the government has also regulated ownership media outlets to ensure that no one broadcaster monopolizes the market. That is since in the 1980s. However, the government has loosened restrictions on media ownership, and Congress passed the Telecommunications Act to allow companies to own even more media outlets. I think that is okay. Due to the loosening of ownership restrictions, more and more media outlets are falling under the control of few giant corporations, a tendency called media consolidations. In Kenya, the KBC corporations own most of the nation's newspapers, whereas Citizen TV communications only in many radio stations. Large companies, i.e., that is, for example, the KTN, owns the major network in other television stations. You get me? The Royal Media Services is owned by Citizen. It contains the Ramogi, the Egesa, and the blah blah blah. So the KTN also has got major television networks. It has the KTN Farmers, it has the KTN News, it also has the KTN Home. So we get it. The critics of media consolidation. In these, critics contend that media consolidation limits consumers' choices. This is because a small number of companies owns all the media outlets. They argue that consolidation is not competitive and that corporate owners might restrict or manipulate news coverage. Yeah. Then there are also the must carry obligations. The must carry obligations. There are presently no regulations with must carry obligations. Section 46 KC of the KICA. However, empowers the cabinet secretary in consultation with the CA to make regulations mandating the carriage of the content in keeping with the public interest obligations across licensed broadcast services. Then there is regulation of new media content. There is presently no special treatment for new content. The regulations is applicable to traditional broadcast media apply with necessary modifications. Then we get the media plurality. There is presently no process for assessing or regulating media plurality in Kenya. These present legal and regulatory frames for broadcast in Kenya encourages media as from enhancing diversity and in support of the local content quota. Section 46A of the KICA mandates the CA to promote diversity and plurality of views for the competitive marketable of ideas or the marketplace of the ideas. Uh, Section 2 was handling political models for the media. In these, I started with capitalism. First, capitalism is often thought as an economic system in which private actors owns and controls property in accord with their interests and demand and supply freely set prices in markets in a way that can serve the best interest of the society. The essential feature of capitalism is the motive uh, to make a profit. Okay, there are models of capitalism that is beginning with free market capitalism, then there is anarcho-capitalism, then there is state capitalism, and there is welfare capitalism. Different forms of capitalism feature varying degrees of free markets, public ownership, obstacles to free competition, and state-sanctioned social policies. Then there are some examples of capitalist economies. That is Hong Kong, we start. Then there are United Arab Emirates, and Singapore, New Zealand, Australia, Canada, and Switzerland. Those to mention but a few. There are elements of capitalism. The elements are division of labor, impersonal exchange based on prices. There is also economies of scale based on knowledge. And as a political model, it also has got 6 pillars, or it has got pillars. The pillars here, namely private property, that is first. The second pillar is self-interest. The third pillar is competition. The fourth pillar is a market mechanism. The fifth pillar is freedom of choice, and the sixth pillar is a limited role of government. We got a second political model, that is socialism. Socialism is a social and economic doctrine that calls for the public rather than private ownership or control of property and natural resources. According to the socialist view, individuals do not live or work in isolation, but live in uh, cooperating with one another. You get it? So the key things, I'll call them tenets of socialism. This is public or collective ownership of uh, this is the public or collect ownership of the means of the production. I mean a group, public or collective, the collective ownership, it is a group. Then there is a central planning of economy and emphasis on equality and economic security. Then lastly, goals of reducing class distinctions. Then another thing about socialism, people are asking themselves, what is the main objective uh, of of this socialism thing? Uh, it is the maximum Socialism is the maximum social welfare of the society. It means that there is no scope of exploitation or labor class. I mean, in this we don't have the rich, we don't have the poor, we don't have the medium class. This Everybody's equal since you all own that piece of stuff. For example, it is a garden. It is owned collectively. You get it? So the sole objective of socialism is the maximum social welfare of the society. It means that there is no scope of exploitation of labor class. Then there are some characteristics. I'll just mention but a few of the main ones. The characteristics goes as follows: state-owned enterprises, centralized economic planning, a classless society, as I explained, then equal opportunity for all individuals, a government-controlled price system. Here goes some advantages of socialism. The government treats the citizens as equals, and the wealth generated by employees is distributed equally to everyone. Then, the government manages the means of production, which ensures that there is fairness in resource utilization and distribution. Then, socialism has got features. The features are as follows: collective ownership of resources, central economic planning, no choice for consumers. It is an equal distribution of income, absence of market forces. Another model was communism. In communism is a political and economic ideology that positions itself in opposition to liberal democracy and capitalism, advocating instead of a classless system in which uh, the means of production are owned communally and private property is non-existent or severely curtailed. The main purpose of communism, uh, the main purpose of communism. So communism is based on the goal of eliminating socio-economical class struggles. This is by creating a classless society in which everyone shares the benefits of labor and the state controls all property and wealth. Characteristics of communism: one, a classless society, common ownership of all resources, social ownership of all resources, then social equality. Disadvantages of this communism stuff: the government owns all the business and properties, I mean the means of production. Then again, there is no freedom of speech in communism. Now, the large geographically broad populations tend to be diverse. This is making it difficult to maintain a common goal or set of rules for shared efforts and resources. And then we got the last mode, that is the welfare state. Welfare state is a state that is committed to providing basic economic security for its citizens. I mean, it's protecting them from market risks associated with the old age, unemployment, these are accidents and sicknesses. The term welfare state first emerged in the UK during World War II. So the types of these: liberal, first, they're conservative; second, social democratic. Now, functions of the welfare state. We got the, we got to afford equality of opportunity. Then the second one is to afford basic standards of living in keeping with human dignity to all, whatever the station in life and social system, and within democratic framework, and within a world at peace. Welfare state has also got its pillars. Those are education, healthcare, social security, and housing. There are objectives of welfare. The objectives of a family and the child welfare services are to preserve and strengthen the family, as a unit, to develop caring interpersonal relationships, to enable individuals and the family members to prevent personal and family problems and to deal with them when they rise, and to provide suitable services to meet needs. The section B of the question was about external and internal pressures in mass media. Uh, I'll just mention but a few. In here, we got employer, we got authority, we got threats, we got bribes, we got gifts and freebies. We also got families. Let me mention something small about the bribes part. In many occasions, the media professionals do not usually earn big money. You therefore be vulnerable to bribery. Somebody offering money or good services in turn of a favorable story being written or an unfavorable story being done. This is what brings in bribery. And again, there are some gifts and freebies. You find that commercial companies sometimes try to buy journalists and other media professionals friendship by giving them small presents or by giving them the opportunity to travel at the company's expense. Sometimes these are what we call freebies. We also got threats. Many people tend to avoid bad publicity by threatening the media professionals with the violence or legal action. Such threats should always be resisted unless you're advised by a lawyer that you're legally in the wrong. So those are some of the few external pressures, but the rest are there. The section 3 was media, law, and ethics, and it majored in freedom of speech. Now, focusing attention on freedom of communication, media ethics, a very timely concern in today's world. Let's analyze some of the basic principles and fallacies of the media. All these formulate ethical limits on the working of the media, emphasizing this should be self-imposed by the media rather than imposed from the above legislature or the courts. Here, the concern lies with the concept of the public right to know and the ethical constraints. The aim of this is to scrutinize the assumption that objective reporting is good, is ethical reporting. I do this by reflecting on different dimensions that are accurately or associated with the concept of the objectivity. This is one, accuracy of the information. Second, fairness and balance. Then the third one is faithfulness. And four, it is moral neutrality. The concern is with the limitations that should be placed upon freedom of the written and electronic press. Freedom of speech in the media is the guiding rule, one of the foundations of democracy. But at the same time, freedom does not imply anarchism. And the right of the exercise, free expression, does not include the right to harm others. Then B, there is also the conflict of interest which was addressed. Essentially, it is a term that is used to describe when a member of the media, such as a journalist, has an obligation or an interest that is essentially at odds with his or her duties with an employer, a medial challenge or channel, and the audience. Now, it should not intend to serve as a motivation for the journalist to alter the story and prevent sharing facts. Below are some common use situations that I like us to interact with. A journalist is who is conducting an interview with a town, maybe council member, tries to determine if the council member's son uh, on a date is appropriate. That is first. Then there's a second situation. An editor of a local newspaper is wondering if running for town supervisor would be all right. If running for town supervisor would be all right. Now, yeah, I'll say, okay, according to me, I can give the following answer. It can be hard to tell, but as the code of ethics doesn't really go into too much detail about what is actually considered a conflict of interest. The code of ethics does state that a journalist should avoid conflicts of interest, whether they are real or perceived, and that they should always disclose conflicts that are unavoidable. However, this code does not highlight additional details regarding what would make a conflict unavoidable. So, tips, I came up with some tips uh, that is of avoiding conflicts of interest. That is, uh, one, someone should never donate money to activists or political groups. That is first. Second, stay away from gifts and freebies from sources of information. Then, three, keep out of political activities. Then, four, and lastly, avoid developing relationship or relationships with sources. Uh, Section 4 was addressing the current trends in mass media. I'll major on the key points. First, uh, the current state that we are, mass media is now heading towards the needs and wants of the users. It's heading towards a position that has aimed at a greater good. In a nutshell, it's making the world a more connected place, a nuclear family, if you may. Okay, I'm saying uh, through mass media, the world has become a small village. So the evolution of mass media is an elongated, marked with milestones of journeys that is still being continued. The journey is not over. The evolution of mass media occurred due to the need to pass on a message. Ilikuja because we needed to pass information. Unaona? And so in ultra modern times, the line between necessity and luxury is getting blurred, but the bloom of mass media keeps growing. And so this is how it began. The earliest form of information for the masses was inscribed on stones, caves, and pillars. There always has been necessary to pass on important information through generations, along with spreading it to masses. Now, nowadays, it is the evolution has carried ages, and now I'll put it in different categories. There is pre-industrial age, then there is industrial age, and there is electronic age, and there is the evolution of new media. That is the 21st century, which I'll really focus on. But in 1985, Microsoft Windows was launched. So that is when the evolution of the new media started. Then in 1990s to 2000s, invention of the internet, birth of social networking sites, and emergence of social media. That is when it happened. And then we came into 1991 now in category. World Wide Web came into being by Sir Timothy John. In 1995, Microsoft Internet Explorer was launched. Then in 1997, DVDs they were replaced by VCR. Then 2001, instant messaging services came. In 2002, the satellite radio was launched. Then In 2004, there was Facebook that was really used, and it's really used up to date. Then in 2005, YouTube came. We uploading our videos, we doing our stuff and uploading that is some more content. Then 2006, there was an arrival of Twitter. 2007, there was an arrival of Tumblr. Then finally, in 2010, there was Instagram, which is really used to pass a lot of information. This is the evolution or the current trends of media. Thank you. Brian Nyabuto, registration number 2106216. Thank you.